We're here with Wil Anderson, and we're drinking pear cider.
I was saying the other day that I love the pear cider, which for me is interesting because I don't like pears. Like, I've never had a good pear. Like, I don't think, like, I always thought pears were like, yeah, it's like Willy Wonka's golden ticket. Like, you know, you just have to go through like all these rubbish pears that taste like cardboard and chalk, and then like there was 5 good pears in the entire world, and if you found one of those, like, you're a winner. I like cider, drinking cider when I'm overseas, because as you know, in Australia, cider is a ladies' drink. So you're not allowed to drink cider in Australia. If I went into a bar in Australia and asked for a cider, I might as well have gone into a bar and said, do you have a skirt? And my handbag and a pair of gloves behind the bar. So when I go overseas, I like to do things I can't do back home.
Well, I like the idea of being able to do things when you're away, because especially, you know, if you wanted to wear if you wanted to wear a skirt, Scotland's the place to do that. Although, if you actually call it a skirt, it'll be the fastest way to get punched in the face.
It's interesting you mentioned the skirt thing here in Scotland, though, because someone was telling me the other day that there's not a lot of transvestites and transsexuals in Scotland, like compared to other places. And I was wondering whether that's because if you are a man who wants to wear a skirt in Scotland, there's actually a way to do that that's totally socially acceptable. Like, I mean, you know, it's not like, because in, you know, like a lot of Western cultures, like if you're a man, you have to wear, you know, pants, and if you're a woman, you get to wear a skirt. Whereas in Scotland, if you just like, you know, to wear a skirt, you can just kind of wear a kilt, and, you know, you're halfway there, really. Wear a pair of fancy knickers underneath, no one's really going to know it.
Yeah, there's also the chance that it could be due to the lack of tolerance for people cross-dressing.
I mean, it could be a bit of both.
I mean, you know, that there aren't that many cross-dressers in Middle Eastern countries. I don't think the United Arab Emirates has a lot of cross-dressers either. But I don't think that's because they've got kilts.
Although, like, let's be honest, if you're a Middle Eastern cross-step dresser and you're wearing, say, the full burqa, no one's going to know that you're a bloke anyway.
It's the perfect crime.
I mean, it is the perfect place to cross-dress, if anything. Because no one's going to go, oh, that's clearly a bloke dressed up as a woman. I mean, it's very hard to tell at the best of times in that outfit. So I would have thought, actually, in the Middle East, that when you're caught, things don't end so well for you for cross-dressing. Up to that point, it's pretty easy to get away with a cape. I was in Montreal recently at the comedy festival over there, and they had, it's very big on the street theatre, where they have the people who are like in kind of like giant mascots, and you know, they have the big heads, and so the people who are in them end up, you know, they're down in the body and they're looking at a little post box thing, and then they've got this giant cartoonish head up the top.
Through the tongue, they look at
it. Yeah, totally, right? And I just thought, if, you know, I know obviously there's a lot of, you know, racism towards women from the Middle East in, you know, Western societies. If they just got around in burqas that look like that, you know, really friendly Disney burqas, then nobody was, yeah, everyone would be like, oh, you know, this really lovely Muslim walking in the street, the kids love her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's dressed as Donald Duck. They can't keep away from her, you know?
Just a little bit more friendly, just friendlyising.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got your process, like if you've got your clothes that you change into to go on the stage, is that part of the transition from off-stage Wil to on-stage Wil? What's the difference between those two? Is there a difference between those two?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference between the two of them. Like, you know, that's why I could never date anyone. People always say, oh, it must be great, like girls must want to meet you when you're a comedian. Because, you know, girls always say, oh, you know, sense of humour, it's the, you know, the most important thing, which, you know, we all know as comedians is not true. Like, if there's a good-looking guy in the room, that is much more important than sense of humour. Yeah. Like, you know, if Brad Pitt was the most boring, dull man on earth, but it was Brad Pitt or John Candy, you know, the girls aren't getting randy for Candy, you know? They're just going, yeah, we'll take you, Brad. We'll just find a funny gay friend. Yeah. You know, it'll be fine. We'll find we'll find our laughs in other areas of our society. We can outsource our laughs. We're fine with that. We'll just go to a lot of comedy clubs. That's fine, Brad.
What is important about comedy? What makes it? What's its function? You know, and where do you sit within the function of comedy as a whole?
John Hughes said that comedians are the poets of our day. You know, that back in the old days, that the poet's job was to look at society and kind of, I guess, hold a mirror to society, reflect what was going on. And the great comedy exists in that gap. The great comedy exists in the gap between what is being said or what is being perceived to have happened and reality, what is really going on. And that could be as simple as somebody making a joke about biscuits. The perceived reality being this about biscuits, but the actual reality being this. And when the person says that actual reality, everyone laughs because they go, yes, that is true. That's actually how we feel about biscuits.
Yeah.
Up to someone doing, searing political commentary about, what say a government, a government saying about the war and what's really going on with the war, or what a government's saying about race and what's really going on with the race. All great comedy exists in that reality gap, the gap between what is real, the truth, and what is being said to be true, or what is being perceived to be true. So the role of comedy is to point out that difference, to make people aware, so they're not always believing what is being said to be true and missing what is actually true.
Yeah.
And I think that almost all comedy, all good comedy, works in that place, So then when you're writing, you have to be really conscious of when does the message overwhelm the first part of the job, which is the funny, right? So my rule is never a point at the expense of a joke.
Yeah.
I can have a joke with a point as much as I want. If the point is a joke, I can make as many points as I want. I can make 60 straight minutes of points if they all have jokes that come with them.
Yeah.
But the minute I put a point at the expense of a joke, I'm a public speaker or a politician who's using humour rather than a comedian. And I have no problem having a joke without a point.
Yeah.
I just can't have it the other way around. And I think that's what makes you a comedian.
If you're doing that then, do you then have a responsibility for the points that you make? Yeah, I mean, should you be held accountable for the things that you say, for the points that underlie your comedy?
I think you should, but you can't control how people will necessarily perceive something that you do, right? Like, I, for example, used to do a routine about the Cronulla riots.
Yeah.
Like, so as you know, there was a big anti-Middle Eastern riot in a place called Cronulla in Australia, which is a predominantly white area of Australia. In fact, I believe the highest percentage of Anglo-Australians or something live in the Shire, and they had this big protest down at the beach where people with like Australian flags on them and the Southern Cross and that sort of thing, beat people of Middle Eastern appearance with baseball bats and chanted, "You're un-Australian, you're un-Australian." And I used to do a routine about that. And I did this whole thing about, my issues with the flag and things around that, right? But then I had a joke in there, which was, so they were beating people with Middle East appearance with baseball bats chanting, "You're un-Australian, you're un-Australian." And I took this moment and it was at the end of quite a long bit and I was just like, "No, you're un-Australian." And people would just be like, this right-on crowd that I have, would be like, "Yeah, that's right, they're un-Australian, right on." And then, because I felt like the routine had got too right on, and you always want to the punchline to that joke was always, "Use cricket bats," and it would take the air out of the room, because it was essentially what I was trying to do with that line was, I'd taken them too far to right on, and I just wanted to flip them back around to remember that we weren't all just sitting here, judging. We weren't all sitting here on our high moral horses, going, aren't we fabulous? We know and they're losers. I wanted to, play with it because you provoke it. Like, people laugh. That is a laugh response, but people laugh like this. Ha! Oh. Because there's an initial laugh and then what are we laughing at? So I was always really proud of that line because it took people out of a comfortable area. But what I found was, when I toured more regional areas, what stopped happening was me getting, when I would say "You're un-Australian," I wouldn't get the round of applause after that, because the crowds weren't as right on and inner city, lefty elite. But then when I said "use cricket bats," I would get a different round of applause. I would get a like, yeah, use cricket bats to bash the Aussies. It was the same joke.
Yeah.
But it was being perceived in a really, really awful way. And I wondered about that. I wondered, do I stop doing that joke? Because I could hear how it was being perceived differently. It's the same joke.
Yeah.
It's the same joke and I'm doing it in the same way. The same joke that was this, I thought was a brilliant counterpoint to, you know, lefty idealism in the city, had become almost a, you know, a race calling card for redneck bogans out in the country. So when I say that, yes, you have to be responsible for the things that you say, certainly. But sometimes it's just the audience's perception, what they bring to the table that informs the colour of what you say. So you can't always be responsible for what you say.
Why do people come to Edinburgh? It's famously expensive. It's a financial nightmare. It's the most expensive festival for comedians to come to. The average audience is like something you can count on one hand, and most people pay. Comedians' girlfriends must hate Edinburgh because it's exactly the length of someone's holiday time off work, and it's the exact amount of money that you would spend on a holiday in a really exotic location doing absolute everything in a 5-star hotel. So, why come here?
You come for the glory of it and you come for the pain of it. Because both of those things are so true. You know? Like, it's that great cliche of why do we fight, to remember that we bleed. And I think that Edinburgh has an element of that. You fight to remember that you bleed. Like, if you can do Edinburgh, you can do anything. I remember this tale that is told by comedians to other comedians about a comedian playing one of the late night gigs. And he'd done 15 minutes of material, had not got a laugh. And we all know it's like, it just sometimes happens, And all he wanted was that one laugh to get off stage. Just that parachute laugh. Just that one thing that they laugh and you can say, thank you very much, good night, I got him. But he's running out of material. So he started to think, well, I'll do some audience stuff. Hi, what you know, what do you do? Hi, what you know, what do you do? Now it's like watching a car accident in slow motion, Like people in the audience is like, no! There's tumbleweeds rolling across the stage, the sound of crickets. And he's finally gone up to this guy and gone, hi, what you know? And the guys look back and gone, Dave Allen. It was the famous Irish comedian Dave Allen. Everyone in the room recognised who it was. Apart from this guy who'd been on stage for 15 minutes and clearly was not thinking very well by then. So he said, Dave, what do you do? And Dave Allen just looked back at him and said, I'm a comedian. What do you do? And I think that's one of those magnificent stories, and I don't even know if it's true. But I think if you come to the Edinburgh Festival and you survive it, and you have done good shows every night, and you do not let the festival beat you, then I honestly believe you can then walk away and you can look people in the eye and say, I am a comedian. What do you do? And I think, particularly for stand-up comedians, that's a really powerful idea. If you can look other comedians in the eye, if you can walk into a room and feel comfortable in their presence. And I don't know if you can do that until you've done Edinburgh. It's like, it's like going to war. It's like people who've been to Edinburgh share Edinburgh with each other. So it's attractive and horrible for all those same reasons, It's like, I say to people, they say, oh, is it fun? I say, some of it's fun. But it's like running a marathon, Some of it you think, this is brilliant. I'm cruising, I'm flying. Some of it you think, oh my God, I've hit the wall, Weed is running down my leg. I'm never going to make it to the end. And then when you make it to the end, you don't necessarily feel good, but you feel this great sense of pride and achievement that you've done it, And I think that, to me, is Edinburgh.